In an oversaturated sea of mediocre, light board games that seem to come out every single year, Loot has been an incredible breath of fresh air. In Loot, players control a horde of Vikings raiding the mainland, capturing buildings, stealing the Englishman's cute little sheep, and just racking up as much riches as possible while getting in your opponent's way at every turn till you are crowned the Jarl of the Vikings. It plays incredibly fast, and it's a hell of a lot of fun, and it has a lot more depth than we've had sort of a string of lighter games that we've been reviewing, and we've just given them all like 5s and 6s, which would lead you to believe that like, okay, I guess they don't like light games, but Loot is light. Loot is light, and spoiler alert, we love Loot, or I love Loot, I don't know.
I do too. I would say with all the games we played recently, all the new games we played recently, it's become really clear to both of us that we do like light games if there is kind of a deeper layer that allows for more strategy. When it's more
light doesn't necessarily mean shallow. Light should never mean shallow.
Or too simple.
Yeah.
It should be simple to teach, simple to learn, but the more times you play, the more involved you feel in it.
That's right. And this game, as you'll see through the review, has a bunch of layers of depth. Like, okay, at its base level, it's incredibly simple. All you're doing is placing down a Viking. Every turn, you have to place down a Viking. The Viking can either connect to your own Vikings or someone else's Vikings. And then you get whatever resource you cover. So essentially, you've pillaged that space. The optional thing you can do is you can select a boat. And the boats are things that you want to surround with the tiles that you'll be taking from the main board to put on your own personal board. The one thing I really love about this game is it's deceptively mean. It can be really, really mean.
No, just you can be mean.
I can be, yeah, but it facilitates meanness. But only if you want it to. You can play this game as passively as you want. You know, Kim's sort of like the type of game where he's like, hey, let's hold hands and pillage the friggin' blah, blah, blah.
I don't like the word pillaging. You're just visiting the towns for resources.
You're just Vikings going in, taking some Polaroids of some shit, and then getting out. But when
boring some wood and boring the sheep.
Yeah, exactly. But when I play this on Board Game Arena, I am cutthroat. If you walk away from a game of this with me on Board Game Arena and you don't hate me by the end of the game, I have failed. I have failed.
This is what I have to live with, y'all. Like, you understand?
Yeah, but I just said I can also play lightly with you. But you're interacting with the person sitting next to you at the very least, because you're paying close attention to what it is they need and scooping up the things that they might want. So if they need a lot of houses or they need a lot of, towers, you might do your best to gun towards those quicker and maybe even block them if you so desire.
I would never try to get stuff so that you can get them, but I do try to block you a little bit. I wouldn't do it if it's completely out the way, but if it's on my way and I would benefit from that spot, so why not?
I will go out of my way to block.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like a really unique thing with this game too. A lot of games that allow for meanness, I feel like if you're not mean, the game is a whole different game.
Yeah.
Right, versus this game, you can be mean, but you don't have to be mean, and you'll still do fine.
Yeah,
you can do it either way.
It's not mandatory. It's optional. But you'll lose if you play with me and you're not mean. And the other thing I love about this game is that it is an incredible exercise in efficiency. At any given turn, you're doing your best to maximize not just the place that you place your Vikings, but where you place those tiles that you've pillaged onto your primary board, because you need to surround these particular structures, right? Because you're not just capturing the resources, you're capturing houses, towers, and castles. And you need a certain amount of, let's say, castles to fill what amounts to a sort of contract on your personal board. And so what you're doing is to make sure that, okay, if I place this tree here, it can fulfill this contract it's touching, but then also it can fulfill this other contract it's touching. I like that. It not only do you have the depth of strategy on the main board, but you're also doing your own thing on your own board, which requires a bit of strategy and tactical play as well.
I like how you're so obsessed with like how strategic the main board is, when really all I do is kind of focus on what resources I need, and that's kind of
why she loses.
And so I think this game is so fantastic. Is that you don't have to be like super strategic. You can play in a I just put stuff down, focus on what I'm doing kind of thing. Mm-hmm. You can have people that aren't really into board games that kind of play this very lightly or lightheartedly, and people that, like us, really want the depth in the game and also find that from the same game. Yeah. And it's not that you have to add components to add expansions.
It's
a very simple base game that allows for all of that.
Yeah, it's pretty, the rules are fairly intuitive. There's nothing here that's particularly complicated aside from maybe capturing some of the structures. You might struggle with that on your first turn. You get as much as you put in. If you want to make this a fairly light, relaxed, lighter game after a hard day of work, you can. But if you want to get a little cutthroat, if you want to play with other people who are as experienced with the game as you are, you can have a lot of competitive fun with this.
All in a simple, light, short game. I think that's kind of the key thing here. You can play in under 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and it still is so good.
And the boats just add this other layer of, not complexity, but depth, in that you want to choose the boats that you know you can surround. But at the same time, some boats will provide bonuses. Whenever you complete a boat, it gives you an extra bonus in scoring. So for example, one boat might give you +2 or 3 victory points for every castle that you own, or another boat will give you an extra victory point for every tree that you own. So now not only am I looking at like what boats I'm capable of completing, but I'm also looking at like what's going to advantage me at the end game. You know, if I have a lot of gold, then I should shoot for the boats that provide me the bonus victory points on gold. And again, it's just this extra layer that the game is able to add without adding any sort of complexity at all. The important part of making a light game is to still provide your players with as much choices as possible without giving them too much rules overhead or complexity, right? Like being able to choose we're calling them contracts, but they're really just the boats that you surround or the buildings that you surround. Giving players the choice in contracts it seems like an obvious decision, but there's a lot of lighter games that just like, they already give you the same contracts every single game. So you're taking away from the player a sense of agency. And the more options you can give me on any single turn, the more permutations of choices I have, the happier I am. I want to be overwhelmed. Even in a light game, I want to be slightly overwhelmed.
I don't think it's overwhelming. I think it's just variety, right? So that each time you play,
Yeah.
you know the game isn't going to feel exactly the same.
That too.
Yeah, and that's important too, because like there are some games that we've played where the first time we played it was like, wow, this is fantastic. Second time we play is like, it's not bad. Third time we play is like, oh, this is not great anymore. And it's just like the game feels the same every single time, and not in a good way. It feels the same as you feel like you're repeating the same game again and again, versus feeling like you have that same source of excitement and joy from all the new things every single time you play that same game.
We're doing a bit of gushing here, but there are some negative aspects of this game, and I think primarily would come down to the element of luck. I had mentioned earlier that this game, you could play it competitively if you want, but there is an element of luck. You are drawing these boat tiles from the bag to replenish the ones that players take, and there are times when you will just draw the perfect boat for your opponent, where they already have it done, like they already have it like perfectly situated. But that doesn't bother me that much, I don't think.
Yeah, I think almost every game has some.
Not many will, yeah.
But it's just how much luck and how much will it impact the game. And for this game, it's such a small component that it doesn't feel like it's that bad. It feels like you can still get away with that unfairness in a way without it feeling like the game is completely awful and ruined.
Yeah. And we haven't even touched the 3 powers that you have in this game. They're one-time use, okay? One of them is the ability to place on top of another person's space, because typically you can't occupy the same space. The other one is to double place, so to play 2 Vikings on a single turn. And then the last one is to get double the reward bonus of a tile. These little abilities are where I think a lot of the confrontation can come from, and where I have a lot of fun, because they're one-time use. So when I see Kim rushing towards, let's say, houses, and because I know she needs a lot of houses because of her contracts that I can see on her board, I can do the double placement to quickly get to that house as fast as possible, or just surround the house before she surrounds it, get both of them off, because there's a limited amount of supply of these buildings that we're trying to capture. And the buildings are what provide that confrontation of the game. It's not the resources themselves, it's the buildings, because the castles require 4 placement. So sometimes you can make it so that, you can kind of block off a person so they never get their 4 Vikings surrounding that castle. But in return, the game does provide a way that you can sort of like get around that, sort of like the tunnels in Ticket to Ride Europe, where, if you feel you're being blocked off by something, you can place in that same spot that somebody else has placed on. So it can be really punishing and really mean, but also there's a mechanical element of forgiveness.
Yeah, the little special player abilities, honestly, I would say it it's like a make or break for games like this, because
It's another layer.
yeah, it adds a layer of complexity of choosing when to use them. And the game is so well balanced that the luck element feels like it can be counteracted with all these other things the game offers.
Looot is just a wonderfully simple and yet deeply satisfying game that I relish every time I play, and it just seems to get better every time I play. I love that you don't have to be mean if you don't want to. I love that, like, on the one hand, not only am I gauging this tactical puzzle on the primary board, but I'm also looking at what my opponents are doing, and I'm deciding, okay, do I need to block them here? Do I need to scoop that house out before they scoop it out? And then when I finally get that tile for myself, I have to put it on my main board and think, okay, I have to be as efficient as possible with these tile placements. There's so much for me to think about, and yet none of it feels complex. There doesn't feel fiddly, it doesn't feel like there's a ton of rules overhead. Like I said, it's wonderfully simple and yet deeply rewarding. And for that, I give this game, I give this game an 8. I give it a 9. I give it a 9. I've hyped myself up. I was thinking about 8, but now, I don't know, the more I talk about it, the more I really enjoy it. Obviously, I'm approaching this game from a light game perspective. Me and Kim are typically heavier gamers. But, when we review a lighter game, we're comparing it to other light games. And I think in comparison to many, many other lighter games, I think this one shines through, to me.
I wouldn't call myself a heavier gamer. I say I am like opposites. I love the really heavy games where you sit down for 4 hours and you're deeply engrossed. But I also very often prefer lighter games. Like, we have lives, so I'm just playing games, and so sometimes, like, after work or other stuff, life gets in, you're tired, and you don't have the mental capacity to sit down for a 4-hour game. It's not, like at 9 p.m. at night, I don't want to crack out something that...
Our bedtime's 10.
My bedtime's 9. So that's why we argue. And, if you want to play a game at 9, I'm already, like, half dead. I don't want to play something that's going to cause me to be pulling my hair out. And this game, for some reason or another, I don't like the meanness of it, or the potential meanness with Mike, but there's so many unique things, and the tiling aspect, the picking the resources, and kind of not necessarily area control, but knowing how to manipulate your opponents and then choosing the right contracted boat tiles before they choose them. All of it is just so well executed, and so yeah, I would give it a 9 as well. Like, even right now, we played this game right before reviewing it, and I was itching to play it again.
So Tabletop Turtle enthusiastically recommends Loot with 3 O's. And if you see me on Board Game Arena, I'm under Tabletop Turtle, I think. Challenge me. You will lose. Goodbye.
Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next one.
Like, comment, subscribe. Bye.
Bye.